Welcome to Harmonium LA, the podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Heedy Gandolfi, emotional wellness expert, founder of Harmonium LA, and published author. The world needs healing now more than ever. My goal is to bring you inspiring conversations, tips, and techniques that will help you build a sustainable healing toolkit. The Harmonium LA podcast is the only resource you will need to slow down, stop searching, and start healing. Welcome back to another episode of Stop Searching and Start Healing. So I have a treat for you today. My guest is somebody that you do not want to miss if you are a parent. So whether you are about to become a parent, or if you have just recently become a parent, whether you have a toddler, an infant, or even a child that is just not sleeping, and that is creating angst and stress in your life as a parent, then this is an episode that you absolutely do not want to miss. Dream Big Babies sleep specialist Esther Ruber and proud toddler mama has been a practicing occupational therapist in Los Angeles for over 10 years, having received her master's degree from Boston University. Her clinical work has allowed her to participate in the art of establishing physical, environmental, and behavioral equilibrium among clients of all ages, including infants. As a spiritually informed and intuitive practitioner, Esther is heart-centered, adaptive, and functional in her approach. Her passion and experience working with infants and adults in clinic, coupled with the birth of her daughter, sparked her calling to serve families with new babies on their journey towards finding life balance and joy. In January 2019, Esther took her doula training in order to deepen her ability to empower parents with practical tools during the perinatal period, especially those that create the sleeping household of their dreams. So without any further ado, let me introduce Esther. So welcome, Esther, to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Thrilled to have you here. How are you doing?
So much. I feel blessed to be here. Very excited.
Right. So listen, why don't we just start a little bit about your story, about your journey, honestly, about how you got to, because you're doing incredible things right now. So I can't wait to share more about what you're actually doing, but sort of the journey and the road that you took to getting you where you are right now, because I know it wasn't easy. So why don't you just give us a little bit of background on that?
Okay, doke. So I guess it started as becoming a clinician, an occupational therapist. I've always had a deep fascination, reverence for the human body, how it works. I actually started by going to physical therapy sessions with my mom, and just being super interested. And also watching other people develop rapport, watching how a human being develops rapport with another human being, and basically creates more comfort and connection with another human being in order to create positive therapeutic outcomes. So all of that, loving the human body, loving this connection between humans in order to create positive outcome. So that kind of spurred me off onto my journey to become an occupational therapist, which is a super interesting field. Not many people, actually now it's becoming a little bit more understood. Usually people are like, wait, what? Do you help people get back to work?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
So for people that have never heard of it, I mean, it's to some it's commonplace, but for others, as an occupational therapist, what does that even mean? What does that look like?
So what it really looks like, first of all, it's about getting a human being functional again in whatever capacity is either required of them or that they want to be functional in. That can be leisure. So like, let's say something that's required of us as human beings generally is to be socially apt in order to be functional on the job. Right. Or be able to move mechanically so that we can be functional in our profession. That's something that's required of us. Something that someone might want to do is play guitar again, right. Or to do yoga again, or to even, by the way, make love. There are occupational therapists who specialize in people in sexuality and allowing people to have sex. It's the most beautiful thing about it is it's not even related to diagnosis.
Right.
So as an occupational therapist, we would decipher, okay, what are the barriers preventing this person from being functional in the ways that are required of them, or functional in the ways that they would like to be functional? What are the barriers? What are the deficits that we need to address? And what are the strengths?
Right.
So in clinic, we would say, okay, this person has a lot of leg strength. Let's focus on using their leg strength and their balance, and then creating an activity that simulates one of these things that they would like to or need to be functional again in.
Right.
So let's stand, use balance, and then they love guitar. Let's simulate like a guitar playing activity.
Right.
Or for a person that needs to get dressed, like maybe a person just had a stroke. And
So this is
I
something
need
that
to
comes after an illness or an accident or something
exactly
that's preventing you doing what you could typically normally do in your life.
exactly. So whether that's acute, like a stroke, or whether it's kind of a chronic condition, helping this person feel empowered, confident, and using practical physical tools to get them there as well.
Love it.
So fell in love with it. After 10 years, I worked in pediatrics. I worked in Israel. I worked with infants, with positioning and feeding. And then I moved toward working with adults with all sorts of disabilities, psychiatric illnesses, neurological illnesses, all sorts of disorders. And ultimately, although I'm really, really thankful for the medical world and for, clinic and all of the orchestration of all of the professions, interdisciplinary setup that allows people to get stronger in clinic, it started to feel like I was coming out of alignment with that a little bit. The intentions are all good, but I felt like I wasn't really able to use all of my skills as a human being in the way that I wanted to. And no judgment on the clinical setting, but something felt like it was missing for me.
Yeah.
Then all of that started to come to a head once I got pregnant and had my daughter 3.5 years ago. I always get emotional when
Yeah,
I
because
just
it's such a
when
life-changing event,
I
right?
know, I
To
know.
birth a child is a
Yeah.
huge, it's a huge thing for us to do, and the
Yeah.
emotions and everything that go with that. And even now, sure, absolutely, go
Yeah.
there.
So it gave me that, year basically, because I had to stop working a little bit early with my just how I was feeling in my third trimester. Although I had a great time, I was like, I think I'm going to take a month or two before. And it gave me this pregnancy, and then the birth experience gave me all of this time to kind of take a breather from working in the clinical setting. And then I had her, and I had this really, and I had the most amazing doula that worked with me through my pregnancy and through my birth. And then I had this aha moment of, wow, I need to become a doula. I need to get certified in becoming a doula, which is a birth coach. Some people, many do becoming the world of the doula is becoming much more popular. There's a resurgence of this popularity with, becoming kind of this emotional birth coach that also has practical tools. It's different from a midwife. A doula isn't certified to deliver. They're more there to advocate for the birthing couple, to advocate for the birthing person, to be an emotional support, to be, an advocate really. And they also have some tools up their sleeve with, massage and all those beautiful holistic wellness modalities.
Right.
And it was just this moment of, wow, this is something that's really calling to me, being able to be kind of for lack of a better word, like a spirit guide for this birthing person, for this woman, and also for the child, really, really spoke to me. And in the moment that I was in the course, I had this huge rupture, being kind of surrounded by all of these women in the doula course, each woman kind of telling their birth story. Most of them were women and women and mothers.
Right.
And as I was telling my birth story, like all of this emotion and all of this trauma in essence was integrated. And then from there, I spawned off into this journey of, women's wellness and creating workshops, and slowly that pointed me toward the sleep consulting, continuing to specialize in how can I support mothers, parents, humans on this parenthood journey, and realizing that sleep is this amazing concrete tributary,
Right.
that is very practical but opens up this amazing, all of this amazing, like emotional, nervous system, physical, like can of worms that I can start to. I was joking with you before, it's one thing to help the infants, but I was like, if I go the sleep route, I can use this as a pillar to start working with adults on the nervous system level. So it's like a little bit of a, I guess it's a little bit of a trap, but a sweet trap. Like
But a
I,
necessary trap, I think.
yeah,
Honestly, Esther, because I think that's the thing. And you spoke just for a second there, you said about how when you were in this course with these other doula women in the training, and then you kind of had this rupture and all your trauma came up. Is that trauma from the birth of your daughter? Is that what that kind of brought up for you from all of that situation? Or was that something else that triggered it, which then also made you realize with all of your training from before, that
yes.
the nervous system is like the key to all of that and
Oh
needs
my
to
gosh,
be
yes.
woven into it?
That's it. It all came to a head, realizing, because, you know, leading up to the birth of my daughter and then after, and this is also a very important part of the conversation, but I'll just kind of be brief with it. I also had a lot of physical ailments that I, was rejecting and suppressing and making them be not okay. Instead of it being my nervous system saying, hey, Esther, you're out of alignment somewhere. So absolutely, Jess, it was like the culmination, that experience I had in the doula course was a culmination of also being nervous system wise, emotional wise, out of alignment with my profession for quite some time, and out of alignment with my body, not being, kind of suppressing all of these messages that my nervous system was telling me.
Yeah.
And then having this trauma, which is traumatic, like you have, years of these tiny, minuscule, mini traumas, we'll call them, of the body saying, this isn't working out. And you'd be like, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just chill out. Nah, that's okay. Like this years of kind of suppressing.
Yeah.
And then the body ultimately going as a woman through one of the most
Are you kidding?
traumatic and beautiful
Yeah.
experiences. It crack you open. You're saying goodbye to your body, how it was before, and now this newness. And then that was kind of the camel the straw that broke the camel's hump.
I think that's crucial because it's not just saying goodbye to your body, it's saying goodbye to your life, the
Identity.
life that you had, right? Because your life, when you have a child, it's never going to be the same again. No way around that. So not only is the trauma of actually, having that child grow within you and then think about how your life and how you and your body is going to shift moving forward, but the stress and the trauma, I guess, and the anxiety of making sure, you want everything to be done right. You want to make sure there's no problems. You're going to be worried about all of the different things, not to mention that your hormones are all over the place while you're going through that. And, and from a male perspective as well, from supporting, us as we go through that period of being pregnant and then bring that child into the world, what we go through reflects back onto our partners as well. And then that ultimately can create a whole nother level of stress and anxiety on the nervous system, which can then manifest in other ways. And we don't necessarily think about that at the time.
And that's beautiful. And I love the fact that you mentioned like the partner as well, and how things are reflected through your partner. And another thing that I want to mention, the word that I think is really important for, I think, all of our listeners right now to talk about trauma. Trauma, I think it is a very popular word right now. And I think it's really important to identify that trauma is not bad. The trauma in how I've learned through all of this understanding of the nervous system, it's not bad. What it does entail is, if it is a trauma, it means it's something that we must address. And if we don't address it, it then has the opportunity to snowball into something that affects our function and our well-being. So, for example, I was talking to a girlfriend recently, and she was talking about the trauma of a miscarriage.
Mm,
Um, and so, well, that's a huge trauma. But what ended up happening was it was something very spiritual and positive for her in one regard, but she identified preemptively when this was happening. Okay,
mm,
this is something very traumatic for my body and for my soul.
mm.
So I'm going to create a ceremony around it to release it, to integrate it, so that the trauma of this experience doesn't snowball into a place that it becomes something huge and
So she
negative.
healed it at the time of which, and
Exactly.
that is exactly what I think that's
And
beautiful
that's what we're here
on
for.
that point. Exactly. But when we don't know that trauma has happened or we don't know how to deal with it. I mean,
Exactly.
I had a miscarriage and I didn't know at the time how to deal with that. And so again, you push it down, you blame yourself, you shame
Right.
yourself, you just become in this much deeper space and of unforgivingness. And then again, that ripples out into affecting your relationship with your partner and all
Exactly.
of those different elements. But I think that's a really key point is if you know
Right.
that you're going through trauma and you can address it at that time to heal
Right.
it, then it's not going to move forward to manifest into bigger
Exactly.
and more damaging things.
Yep.
But a lot of the time we don't know it's happening or we're not
Right.
aware or we don't even know how to begin to deal with it. And that is obviously when it can lead to much more detrimental effects down the line.
And that's the work that we're doing. And that's something that I really want to bring light to, helping people, empowering them with being able to identify. Now, miscarriages is kind of, it's right in your face,
Mm.
but how to identify even the tiniest of traumas and recognizing when it's time to ground. Okay, that was actually something quite traumatic. I'm going to take the time to integrate that. And for some of my clients that I've worked in outside of my infant sleep coaching, I emphasize that even having a near accident on the road
Mm-hmm.
can be a micro trauma or a big trauma. You're driving, you're la 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 la, you're all over the place, you're kind of in this gross awareness where you're semi paying attention, and all of a sudden you get swerved. That fight or flight response, that sympathetic response, is actually something that we identified in the nervous system world as something that you need to actually pause and ground and
Yeah,
integrate and move forward. Now, you can't do that every single time, but recognizing that that sympathetic activation is happening, that awareness around that is really powerful for our clients to begin to identify, putting two and two together when the body is in this hyper alert state,
yeah.
and how we can engage with some grounding techniques to make sure the rest of your day isn't on hyper alert because of that.
Exactly. Taking time to reflect. And that's the
Yes.
key with all of, with any healing system and program, it's about taking that time to look inwards so that you can
Right.
move forward as a, better version. But so how does all that now relate to the work that you do with regard to helping babies sleep?
Okay.
And how does that and how is that healing? Let's
Right.
even start there.
Super. So I hope I can answer kind of all that, but I'll go to this. So I kind of recognize through the doula work, through this education around wellness and nervous system, sleep. That is something that if it's not on fleek, you know what I mean? If it's not going well, it is a huge source of nervous system, emotion, and physical drain for the body. So
Yeah.
realizing that sleep, if as a nervous system healer, as an occupational therapist, if I can start to help my patients, my clients with sleep, just by virtue of that, I'm helping soothe the nervous system.
Mm.
I'm helping create an opportunity for a human to feel like they have more agency, more
Yeah.
sovereignty, more faculty. They can navigate being a human with more ease.
Yeah.
So already, just by virtue of that, I'm like, okay, if we can enter the sleep world, we're already entering the nervous system world in such a strong way. Now, in terms of healing, you have twins, like when knowing that parents, one of the most difficult things that they face as a new parent is this lack of sleep.
Yeah.
And it is, regardless of how well and all how well you have a sleep coached or sleep trained baby, regardless of how many practical tools you engage with around sleep, you will not sleep as much as a new parent. So setting the expectation, you are going to be at a sleep deficit. So, this is my cue as an adult nervous system healer, not just about helping baby sleep. Okay, here you are, mama and papa, or mama and mama, or just mama, or just papa. You are in a sleep deficit. How do you handle your emotions and your nervous system in this place? How can you take a step back and become a little bit more accepting, compassionate, and loving, and also open to letting it all how can you become better at releasing these big, raw, crazy new emotions with your in your sleep deprived body? How
Because
can
it's
you
crippling,
yeah
right? It's crippling. If you don't have enough
crippling.
sleep, then everything, you can't even begin. And so, that is the crux of it all. But when you're not getting enough sleep and then baby's not sleeping, then you don't have the patience
Right.
or the capacity to be able to think constructively or, effectively as to what step to take next. And so if you're not very careful, and I wish I had known you 16 years ago when I had my twins, because oh my gosh, I think my first 2 years of being a mom would have been completely different. But if you don't have that way to reflect and take a step back and realize that there is something that needs to be done and can be done.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's
Yeah.
so true. Like I like to be super, super realistic. And that's like one of my, when you're talking about like healing and dealing with these big emotions and dealing with sleep and dealing with becoming a new parent, you have to be realistic. I do want to say, yes, I have a lot of practical tools, skills that I know with 100% certainty will help parents get more sleep. So
Right.
yes, that is definitely 50% of it. It's 50% of it. So if I can get parents even 10% sleeping a little bit more, they're already going to experience 10% more ability, like you said, to develop the capacity to start to use, and I love the word agency, their ability to use their skills as a human, user emotional regulation skills, using their brains, using all of this in order to get from point A to point B, dealing with their newborn. So
Right.
it's this 50% of it is, okay, you're gonna be tired, so let's dive in. And how can we address you as this, having this new identity? How can we address you becoming more compassionate and more patient with yourself and seeing how much this experience is going to make you a better person? And then the other 50% is, I'll also help you and your baby get more sleep. So it's a beautiful kind of, orchestration of baby getting more sleep,
Yeah.
and, baby and you getting more sleep, as well as you becoming more okay with shit when it hits the fan,
Right. And it's
and being
going to. I
tired.
mean, let's be honest, when you have a newborn baby in the house, nothing's the same. It's going to be
No.
different. But maybe we can just touch on a little bit about postpartum depression, because that
Okay.
obviously is
Oh
such a
yeah.
key thing. And again, when you're not sleeping and you've got these hormones racing around your system, even that, do you think that plays into it as well? And that's something that we really need to address a lot more?
100%. And I know this seems kind of like too scientific, but for the mothers that I work with that have postpartum, and we touched on this a little bit before in the previous conversation. When you educate around the miracle of what's actually happening in your baby's brain around sleep, the postpartum mama goes from being angry at herself and her baby and having that exacerbate these hormones, this postpartum, this unbelievable cocktail of things happening, goes from this anger and frustration to, okay, I understand now. If this is happening in my baby's brain, I understand their sleep a little bit more. I'm gonna take, I'm gonna take a break from being angry, at least at myself, and from being frustrated. The postpartum is still going to be there. You
Yeah,
had a
I don't want to
question?
interrupt, but do you think that the pressure from society to have babies sleeping at these, baby has to sleep at this time, and if
Yep.
baby doesn't eat at that time, and then or nurse at that time, and then go back to sleep, and then, do you think the pressure from the outside world as to how to do it
Yes.
also plays such a huge role into that as
Especially now, especially now. So that's exactly what I'm trying to speak to. The postpartum emotions are going to be there. The difficulty, the crying, I have memories of sitting and like at 2 a.m. like on the floor. Like, why am I sitting on the cold floor? It's like
well?
sitting on the floor, like pumping milk, like feeling like crying,
Yeah.
these beautiful emotions. That these moments are going to be there, but at least having more education around what's happening with your baby's sleep and having more realistic expectations takes the pressure off
Yeah.
of how to do it, when to do it, how it needs to be done. And having the societal pressure, the parental pressure, having that pressure off allows you to breathe with a little bit more ease in the experience, in the postpartum experience.
Mm.
And on top of that, with postpartum, with some of the nervous system work that we do, even in the realm of Dream Big Baby, like grounding techniques that we use, we're trying to create, again, I know I keep saying this, more compassion and ease around the big emotions that are going to come, not suppressing them, not telling yourself that you need to feel a different way. No, none of that.
Being okay with them, being okay,
Okay with
accepting
it.
that this is part of
Yeah.
motherhood, and having just given birth, having created first off a new
Yes.
life, and then giving birth to that life, and now having to adapt to that new life in your life because it's not the same anymore. And so I think that's just is beautiful, just to give yourself the grace to
Right.
accept that
That's it.
it's okay to feel this way. It doesn't, stop comparing yourself to the images that you might see in the magazines or
Oh
on
my
the
God.
television.
Yeah.
This is how it's supposed to be, and I look amazing, and all, hair's
Right.
perfect, and figures back to normal in a week. I mean, no, that's not
Not
reality.
the case.
But
And you
now,
need the space and the
yes,
sleep. And so it's beautiful in my Dream Big Baby process. It's beautiful how you get the space physically because you will get more sleep, and B, you get a little bit more of the space emotionally and nervous system wise to experience, because one of the most healing things, and this, one of the most healing things is space,
yeah,
physical space, emotional space, to be able to process
yeah,
all of this newness, all of this bigness, all of this this shock.
yeah.
So getting the sleep in order really helps to give this space.
So now that's a great point, because I mean, I remember, and I can only speak from my own experience, but when I had my twins, I had no idea. I was up in the middle of the night trying to feed one, then the other, then the other. And it was like, I just didn't sleep probably for the first 2 weeks. And it was a disaster. And in the end, I ended up with this supposed, mother's help, I guess, like a bit of not really a nanny per se, not a doula, but just somebody to come and help take the pressure off. And I'm like, they just won't sleep, and I just don't know what to do. And so she gave me all these different techniques to try. And I remember one of them, which was probably the most excruciating for me as a new mom, was like, she said to me, you have to let them be. You have to let
Right.
them cry themselves off to sleep. And she wouldn't allow me to go back into the nursery. She wouldn't let me pick up the babies. And she said to me, go and take a walk outside. But the whole time I was taking that walk outside, in my mind, I could just hear my babies crying,
Oh
crying, crying. And
yeah.
just all I wanted to do was to pick them up and hold them and say, it's okay. And she
Yeah.
wouldn't, she's like, no, this is how we have to do it. And that was traumatizing to me as a new mom, on top of the fact that I was so sleep deprived that I just didn't even know, my arse from my elbow, quite frankly. So, I
Right.
mean, what kind of techniques? I'm guessing that's not the type of technique. I mean, there's probably a place for that, no doubt. But I
Right.
mean, how has it shifted? Because this is like 16 years ago now. I'm hoping things have changed since then.
So first of all, that does still exist. Second of all, one of the most important things around that story actually isn't so much the fact that she said, stay out and I'm going to take care of the babies. It's more the fact that and there's so many elements, like I could probably write a book on that whole interaction, really. And maybe, you know what, maybe I will.
You
There's so many nuances there. One of them is the way in which she came to you to talk about that. So had she come to you and said, Jessica, right now you need rest and you need space from your babies. You need to go take a breath, ground yourself and relax, because I'm noticing that you're really overwhelmed. So I'm not telling you to go away because I'm going to just get this done with your babies. I'm not telling you to go away because I'm going to sleep train your babies. I'm telling you, I see you, Jessica, as a woman, as a practitioner, and I feel like it would benefit you to take a breather. So that's A. If that would have already gone down,
I feel my heart rate dropping just listening to that.
You mean you feel like more open, like your heart opens to that. So like already, if I would have come and said that to you heart to heart as a practitioner, you would have been maybe a little bit more calm. So that's A. Already now the story changes. We're rewriting the story in a way that's a lot more in line with this heart to heart healing way of delivering a sleep program. Okay, so we've taken care of that. So the next thing that happens is how much are your babies at 2 weeks old? First of all, if we're actually talking about a 2-week-old baby, this time is so far developmentally from when it's okay to allow a baby to cry for any capacity independently, any capacity. A baby, an infant, isn't actually able to self-soothe, to use their body to self-soothe until they're pushing 4 or 5 months old.
Wow.
Yes. So 2 weeks old is, and I'm sure she was well-intentioned. Both you and your baby's nervous systems need to intertwine so deeply and so intimately still at 2 weeks old. So that's the next part of the story. Developmentally, 2 weeks is in no way for sleep coaching. Your baby is still, they're like, I call them an amoeba at this phase in their development. It's just, so that's the next part of the story. So we've taken care of 2 little things. I'm kind of rethinking the story in my mind, how you described it. The next part of it is, let's say your babies were 4 or 5 months old, okay? And they are ready to kind of learn how to engage with some self-soothing and sleep independence, practices. We do a very gentle and titrated way of giving babies space to cry. Now, this is not cry it out by any capacity. We're not saying, okay, bye mama, see you later. You're gonna let your baby sit there and just cry. It doesn't work that way. There is interval training techniques where you create kind of a schedule where maybe the first time you try to allow your baby to self-soothe, you will allow them to cry for 3 minutes, let's say.
Right.
And then maybe the next time you allow 4 minutes and then 5 minutes. So it's this very gentle, titrated way. Now, some parents are comfortable with 3 minutes and some aren't. What I'd like to say is, from a developmental standpoint, 3 minutes is actually very much okay, but it's my goal to make sure that parents feel comfortable, because if they don't feel comfortable, what's the point? So if there's a parent that's like, you know what, I'm comfortable with 1 minute, I'm like, beautiful. And at the 1 minute mark, you go in and you comfort your baby in whatever way is comfortable for you. So let's say in that moment, your babies were 4 or 5 months old. You should be you should be able to go back in the room and say, baby, I love you. I have you. Mama is here. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Now, some parents want to pick up their babies and hold them in that interval training. Some don't. And the truth of the matter is, in my opinion, going in, talking to your baby, touching your baby, telling them how much you love them is actually enough to comfort them, to ground their nervous system, to kind of go for the next phase of interval training.
Right.
But again, this is at every phase, the baby's emotional, physical, and nervous system needs are absolutely met. There's no such thing as just being left to their devices.
Right.
No such
And I
thing.
think that's a key thing there, is sort of looking at, if we work on the emotional piece of mom and dad, then it is so much easier for the emotional piece of baby to be met.
Oh, yes.
Because as a new parent, when you are ragged because of the emotional roller coaster that you're on, how can you even begin to calmly enter your baby's space to soothe them?
Right.
Even if you pick them up and you feel that that's the method and you're trying to, rock them and jiggle them, if your nervous system is on high alert, immediately they're going to pick that up. So that's not
100%.
going to be soothing for them at all. And then
Right.
you'll wonder perhaps why they're still crying and why they're still, screaming and not able to settle. So I think what I'm reading into this is basically, you've got to fix yourself first. As a parent, you've got to work on yourself first as a parent to really establish that connection with your emotional well-being, to soothe and calm and find tools to work on your own nervous system, which then allows you the space and the ability to be able then to deal with baby and whatever it is that they're going through as a newborn, amoeba, infant, toddler, whatever they're at.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And that is it. As you work on your nervous system, you are expanding your capacity to deal with some of the more challenging moments around helping your baby learn to sleep independently. So I'll find with my clients, like, what I tell them is, it doesn't matter how much love and how much rocking and soothing, your baby will cry. That's one of the realistic expectations. When a baby is learning a new skill, when things change, they will cry, So, that's why some parents are so uncomfortable when they're out of the room and they're hearing their baby kind of cry and be upset for a minute. I sometimes tell parents, just so you know, the baby might cry. Your baby might also cry while you're holding them. That's the case.
Right.
So be comforted by the fact that developmentally, your baby is at a place where they can use their body. They can use their faculties. Their nervous system is at a place where they can comfortably cry on their own in their sleep space for 1 minute, So you have that. Now, since you've been working on your nervous system as a parent, that 1 minute of hearing them cry on their own in their sleep space isn't so gnarly, isn't so bad. I trust my baby. I trust my baby in this minute that she's figuring out how to self-soothe. She's figuring out how to use her body. She's using her voice. I'm giving her the space to use her voice and use her body to figure it out. And so am I. I'm right now in my own space and I'm figuring out myself right now in this moment. And we're doing that together. And when we come back together, we're both coming back, into the space as mama and baby, or as daddy and baby.
And everybody's needs have been met.
Gone to the next,
and because everybody's needs have been met, that blend
upgraded.
Exactly.
Upgraded together.
But now, what about when you have clients that come to you and maybe their children are older? So maybe we're not talking about newborns or infants. We're talking about toddlers who just still not sleeping, and the parents are just literally at their wits end. They just don't know what else to do. How does that even play into it? And is it too late at that point?
It's definitely not too late at all. I love working with parents with toddlers. The one thing that becomes a little bit more challenging is that at the point where parents have toddlers, what ends up happening is become addicted as parents to some of the tools that the cruxes, some of the sleep associations that we call them. As time goes by, we become a little bit more emotionally addicted to the things that we've been doing that kind of work, even if they're a little bit, the word is maladaptive, So that's the one thing. There's a little bit more reversing, gentle reversing of old habits that need to happen. There's a little bit more of emotional investment. Things like, babies using the pacifier still. And at that point, and here's something that's very important. I'll find that parents are like they're super, um, what's the word? They're just super like obsessed with the pacifier, and like, should my baby not be using the pacifier?
Right?
And I want to say no. At that point, a toddler's using a pacifier, it's their pacifier, and now you got to have, now it's the conversation. Like, you can, when a baby is 4 months and under, you can kind of have the discussion. Maybe we'll toss the pacifier. When a baby's already like well into their toddlerhood using a pacifier, it's not about the pacifier anymore, mamas and papas. There's other things. This is my point here. Is there's a lot more nervous system work and releasing of old habits that parents have to do once their babies are toddlers, and I'm working with them.
So at this point, would you really initially perhaps start working with the parents and really focus on looking at what they're doing and the techniques that they're relying on?
Exactly.
And just working. And
what are they doing to ground themselves? But there's still a lot of practical tools around what's happening. Some of these, I'm surprised. One of the most important things we do in the sleep world is routine. If you think about it, and I tell this to a lot of my parents, if you think about a child from 0 to 5 years old, even from 0 to 18, from 0 to 25, because our brains don't actually solidify until we're 25. But let's talk about from 0 to 5. Consistency and routine are so important, not because parents who have consistency, they're not rigid, they're not inflexible. What happens is you find that when there is routine and ritual, the children are actually so much more free to express themselves. That routine and consistency is there because a child's brain from 0 to 5, every moment is changing. There's so much neurological inconsistency that it's even more important, like, and in a good way. Neurological inconsistency, there's synapses and new brain connections and new things integrating, and it's this jungle of newness. So with the toddlers and with all of this, a lot of what I find is there's a huge lack of routine and consistency when I'm working with. So one of the things I have to work on there is developing routine and structure.
And I could see how some maybe, really not wanting because they see it as too constrictive and, that doesn't fit with my schedule. You know what? That's not something that I can fit into my day. But at the same time, then complaining when they're not getting the right amount of sleep in the evening because there is no routine and structure for the baby.
Right.
And so then it becomes just this vicious circle of, who's to blame and how to even begin to adapt from that.
Right. And it's hard with that too, because some of these parents that I work with, they are like, especially the ones that geared up toward the toddlerhood kind of phase, they are very wellness oriented, and they want exactly what you're saying. They want their babies to have this freedom, and they feel like if it is an imposition on their baby's ability to express themselves, if we develop routine and consistency, and then they end up, sometimes there's kind of a little bit of a conflict working with these parents, like, and they're in defensive mode. And then when the defensive mode happens, I have to kind of take a step back and allow for some space in the conversation and kind of hold up a mirror and ask them, what do they want? What is it? And that's the most important question when I'm working with clients as well. What do you really want? Do you want more freedom? Do you want your children to have more freedom? Or do you want to stay in the space that you're in? Because if you want to stay in the space that you're in, I bless you. Take that. That's beautiful. Like, so I hold up that mirror, like, it's really important. And there are some parents that have had this aha moment, like, I am fighting like all of the tools that you're giving me right now. Maybe it's because I'm not ready to take this step, or maybe it's because I want to stay where I am. And that's beautiful too.
That's it. And I think that's the same with every healing journey, right? That's the same when I have clients that come in. If they're not really ready to change, then it's not the right time. It's just not going to resonate. And it's just, wish them well, because it's not like you have to be 100% sure and ready, because unless you're there,
100%.
a waste of your time and their time, because you're not going to get the results that you know that you can achieve, because you've
Right.
seen that in your practice and you've seen that with the clients that you've had. But they have to be for sure ready that that is the path that they want to take, because it does take commitment and dedication on their part.
100%. This
You
is
know,
not, and you probably see this all the time. It is all of these, exactly. It takes, you have to be fully ready to make some changes. And it doesn't have to be huge, just little bits and changes here and there. And the
yeah.
self-awareness piece.
I love that. So
Yeah.
I think really, like, just to kind of in a nutshell with all of this work, before we talk about your other latest offering, but I think it's like, as a new parent, and when you're going through this process, first of all, just allowing yourself that time and grace, and being gentle with yourself to know that it's
Yes.
okay to feel this way, and that it's not supposed to be perfect, and to give yourself permission to take time out, because it's essential for you to take time out in order to begin to really navigate this new way of being with your new baby, which is such a gift and a blessing. And that's the thing, because you
100%.
can never turn the clock back. You can never get that time back again. So you really want to be able to embrace and enjoy it as much as is humanly possible, because it is such a magical time for anybody to be, to have that with babies. It's, I mean, you can't even. And then to really work with these tools to allow you to show up as the best version of yourself, so that baby can then show up as the best version of themselves, and know that they're not perfect, and know that they're going to cry,
Right.
and that's okay.
Right.
And having these boundaries as well.
100%. And actually something that I like to explain as well is baby in whatever, like, and actually get emotional talking about this too. They're human and just like us. And they're, we have this, we assign this perfect versus imperfect on us. But talk about perfection. This little beautiful perfect bundle is actually as perfect as a human being can get.
Yeah.
So to sit back and see and be in awe, appreciate how good of a job they're doing, even in the amoeba phase,
Yeah.
how good of a job, how natural and responsive and brilliant this thing, this bundle actually is.
Yeah.
The way they're able to adapt. Like we can take a page out of their book, and that's something I also like to teach. Like sit back and observe this incredible, as perfect as it's gonna get, because as we age the imperfections start to come in. As perfect as it's gonna get, human being, take a page out of this things. It is pure presence. This is from the spiritual standpoint. Pure consciousness,
Yeah.
pure presence is this little thing that is just adapting, observing, sensing with their body, because they're not
Everything.
absorbing, they're not intellectualizing, they're not mentalizing, they're not thinking, they're just being. And
Yeah.
that's something that I'm trying to emanate, as much as I
And the
can.
state of our emotional health is what is
Right.
going to infiltrate and infuse into the baby, into this beautiful bundle. And so that's what's so crucial, I think, is to really get ourselves, you have to do yourself first before you can help anybody else. And so I think
Absolutely.
coming from that space, that heart-centered space, is really magical. So what does it actually look like then to work with you if we're working on a program? What does that kind of entail, and what offerings do you have for people that they can find you and reach you, so that anybody can have access? Because let me tell you, I think we all need it for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. So basically, first of all, my biggest platform right now, there's a lot of word of mouth going on. A lot of my client base is word of mouth, but I do have my Instagram page, which is dreambigbaby.world. Through there, you can access my website. And right now, my major offerings are 3 different programs. I have a 0 to 4 month program. I have a 4 to 9 month program. And then I have a 4 to 9 month program, a 9 to 18 month, and then I actually have a parent program. And so those are basically call oriented. There's a 90-minute call and 1 week of unlimited text support. And I create a curated sleep program for the family: feeding, sleep, and grounding practices. So it's like a whole kind of basically care basket for the parents that I work with. I think that I'm going to expand very soon into more of a subscription base, have there, rather than just being one call and the texting support and the program. I want to kind of create a little bit more longevity in the way that I can support families.
Right. Well, it's
So
ongoing, so it's necessary. I think it's
exactly.
always evolving, and there's always something new that's going to come up.
Exactly. So kind of how it works is the initial phase is all evaluation. And I actually, as a clinician, my ability to evaluate and assess is really strong. Evaluate the family dynamic, evaluate the environment, kind of secretly evaluate the psychology and nervous system of the parents, not secretly, kind of like writing down a little bit of what do I notice in their soma? What am I noticing in their body, in their but that's kind of like my private detective work. Unless the parents are very open to kind of talking about kind of what I'm gleaning from behavior and all of that good stuff. So assessing what's happening, what's happening in the baby's world. If there's any routine in place already, what does that look like? How many hours a day is your baby sleeping? How many hours a day, night are you sleeping? What are your goals? What do you envision for the next months? What kind of support do you have in place? Do your family live close by? Like really getting a huge big picture and micro picture of what's happening in your world. And from that point on, after the evaluation process, I start to create this curated plan. I start to figure out based on what's in place. And also safety is a huge thing. As a sleep consultant, a specialist, like I need to also make sure that safety wise in the baby's crib, the baby's environment, that all of that is in place before I can continue, talking to the parents about if there's anything that's concerning, please talk to your pediatrician, making sure all of those things are out of the way. Safety is huge. So once that's all in place, I developed the plan. And then there's the plan is kind of two-pronged. Part of it is actually developing a schedule and routine. And then the next part, if parents want to, is the actual sleep coaching part, where I help train the family to create independence with their baby's sleep. That's the sleep training has a bad rep. I like to call it sleep coaching. So some families do take my actual routine that I create, kind of the sleep program, and then they go on to say, okay, Esther, we want you to help teach us how to use that very developmentally appropriate, gentle way to facilitate independent sleep in our babies. Now, the program in and of itself, the schedule and the routine already, because the platform is sleep science, already if you engage in this routine, you're going to see more independent sleep habit. You're going to sleep, capacity in your baby, and you're going to get more sleep. But then engaging with the interval training, the gentle interval training, it kind of blows the whole thing out of the water. This is when families start to have these beautiful, beautiful 12-hour of sleep stretches.
And then everything shifts.
And
that's the magic right there, because so really curating it to because
what they need, what their needs are, and what their comfort, and especially with regard to the actual interval training, it's whatever the parents are comfortable with. I have my limit of, as a clinician, as a practitioner, as understanding the nervous system in the way I do, I have my own cap for what is appropriate to allow in terms of allowing your baby to kind of figure themselves out independently. And then I scale it back depending on what parents are comfortable with. The mama that wants to go in after 30 seconds and pick up their baby, she can do that. It's going to be a little bit longer of a journey, sure. But it's all about, like you said, together, it's this co-creation of parent and baby, increasing their capacity to kind of cope with change.
And then we're more able to cope. with change.
Absolutely.
And something
Absolutely.
else. Oh, I love that. And then you have an online program too, as
Which
well,
just
right?
came out, which I'm super
Super
excited about. It's my first,
congratulations.
it's called Sleep Easy Baby by Dream Big Baby. I'm
Love it.
super proud of it.
Mm.
Super proud of it. It's you can if you go to the link tree, the link in the bio in dreambigbaby.world on my Instagram page, scroll down and you'll see the Sleep Easy Baby sleep course. Click on it. It's right there.
Beautiful.
Super affordable. It's actually extremely affordable. It's an amazing investment to make. It's an intro and then it's 3 audio chapters. So you can listen to it whenever, however, on the move, driving, whatever, and then a little video conclusion. And each chapter is basically a different time frame. It captures a different time frame of your baby's infancy. So it's newborn, it's kind of the middle chunk, and kind of the older 9 to 18 months. Each chapter is divided into 2 sections: education,
Mhm.
and then practical tools.
Beautiful.
And then I kind of, mindset and expectations are kind of like the umbrella that goes over each chapter. Like, this is how you can relax into this expectations wise. Yeah, it's a great program. It's a great program. The education is so freeing. Like you know, it's so, knowledge is power. I know that that's kind of cliche, but really. And then the practical tools that that coordinate with the education around each phase in the infancy. It's a lot. There's a lot there for mamas and papas to
But it's a
enjoy.
lot to be a brand new mom or dad,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So
Oh
it's
yeah.
fast and it's never ending. But I think,
Yeah.
and
There's
to
a
have,
lot of nuggets. There's a lot. I might venture to say that in this just over an hour course, that you basically learn the ABCs, like really
and how magical is that? Like in an hour or less,
yeah,
when we
yeah,
don't have the time because we're dealing with the new baby. So that's
yeah.
to be able to condense it all down
It's
to make it
concise.
digestible is
Yeah.
beautiful. And to now, I mean, I love the fact that that is accessible no matter where you are in the world, and especially with the current state of the world in the last 12 months and not having that interaction, and to be a brand new parent in this COVID era. I mean, I think whatever tools you can lay your hands on and to have access, I think that that's such a gift that you've got right there, is just, and so needed and so necessary to support and help these new parents feel connected and to feel that there is somebody there that can really help, that gets it, that understands it.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
then of course I'm always, I mean, like you, one-on-one is so important, and there's nothing like it. And I strive to make myself available one-on-one as much as I can. But I do know that, having that freedom to kind of choose when to integrate and listen in and have that hour is just really helpful. And another thing that I know as also still kind of a semi-new parent is, and like we were talking about in the beginning of this conversation, the inundation of all of this, the how-tos and the shoulds and the tools and doing it right way.
already.
So, which is why with this course, with Sleep Easy Baby, and really my program, instead of all of the you must do it this way, what I'm leading with is the education. So if you understand around your child, if you understand logically what's happening, to your, like, in your baby's brain, you then are equipped to make more comfortable and logical decisions about what you're going to do. It just makes more sense. So because a lot of these tools and the shoulds and the musts, they're thrown at you without you really understanding why this works. And I bring this funny, this is pretty nerdy, but I'm a little bit of a nerd. So I bring this analogy that in my era still, and I'm young, I'm 34, but still, when I was in high school, and I don't know if the kids in high school are doing this now, we learned how to do a math problem by hand. Then we learned how to do it with the calculator.
Right.
So the reason why we learned how to do the math problem by hand is so that you could actually understand how you came to solve the problem.
Right.
So here, the analogy rings very true. I teach you what's happening in this phase of infancy, so you can figure out kind of how to solve the problem on your own. Almost, it becomes logical, kind of the solution, as opposed to this like I plug this into a calculator, but I have no idea why I'm doing this.
Exactly. You've got to understand, you've got to have that understanding. You don't know what you don't know. And so you have to understand it to be able to implement it, and to then to be able to put it into practice and see there is a better way. And what you said about it being easy, this is my new mantra for 2021, is let it be easy. Like, it's too much. Life is too hard. So whatever we can do to allow things to be easy and to simplify and not overcomplicate, is a win-win.
And I'll just a tagline to that, not just to simplify, but the work that we're doing is to allow people to use their intuition as a resource. Like that's really the takeaway. That's the takeaway, and that's where Dream Big Baby and the Sleep Easy program, like that, you know, really, that's what I'm most proud of. It's like, here's the information. With this, you should feel, and I shouldn't say should, can have the potential to feel more empowered to use your intuition, because there is no one way to do it. We want to empower people to be more self-reliant and realize the wealth that they have here in their heart, in their intuition, in their brain.
Love that. That's it. You all have the power inside of us, and it's just trust that you always know, but it's trusting that gut feeling, that intuition, and just knowing that you are on the right path regardless, even if it doesn't feel like it, but just having that faith.
Amen.
Oh, I love this. So all of your info, I mean, we're going to put all into the show notes, all the links to all of your info and your bio and where people can find you. And I'm so grateful that you have taken time to share, which clearly it's not just your passion, but this is your purpose. It just it emanates from you, that this is your mission, is to really help, because you've been there and you've seen it, so you know. And that is just so heartwarming, honestly, to just know that, because people want to work with people that are passionate and on a purpose and on a mission. And so it just emanates from you. I'm so grateful for sharing
so much. Thank you, Jessica. And it emanates from you as well. I instantly felt connection with you, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing as well. And this is a beautiful co-creation here. Love it.
It's exactly how it's supposed to be. Oh, so much fun. Love being on the show, and I will take care and look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, darling. Thank you so much for joining me today. I truly hope that you enjoyed the show, and there is at least one thing that you can take away from today's episode that will help you build that sustainable healing toolkit. It would mean the absolute world to me if you would subscribe to the show, give it a 5-star review, and share this or any of the other episodes with somebody that you feel could really benefit by listening. I look forward to seeing you next time.